Magog is Germania. Hello there. Today's topic will be about Magog, the people of Magog, Germania, and Scalia. All right, y'all, let's get into this. So, Magog is Germania. That is, the Germanic people are the children of Magog. This is stated in the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, also known as the Jerusalem Targum. The Targum Pseudo-Jonathan is an Aramaic translation and interpretation of the Torah, traditionally thought to have originated from the land of Israel. In this Jewish work, it states that Magog is Germania, and with good reason. Interestingly enough, during the time period that this Targum was written, I can't remember the exact date, but during the time period that this Targum was written, Germania was a term that was already being used for the region of modern-day Germany. Oh yes. Germania was already a term being used for the region of modern-day Germany when the Targum was written. This, in my opinion, is not a coincidence. You see, the land of Magog plus the Magogite people are a mystery. But if one looks closely into the history of Magog, one can find similarities between the Magogites and the Indo-European people. For example, one of the most famous characteristics associated with the people of Magog is that they are coming from the extreme north, mounted on horses, and extremely adept at riding them as well. Y-DNA haplogroup R carriers have been known to be the most proficient horseback riders in ancient times, coming from the north and also conquering Asia and all of Europe. Does this not sound like the children of Magog to you? Think about it, listener. It is shown by way of the Bible, that the barbarians of the north are so powerful that only God himself is the only one who can stop them. If this is the case, which modern people today do you think fits that bill? Do people walk around saying, Africa can never be defeated? No, they do not. Do people walk around saying China can never be defeated by America? No, they do not. However, how many times have you heard the saying, America is the most powerful nation? America is the most powerful nation on earth. No one can mess with America. We got nukes. We got nuclear weapons. That is because the American kingdom, along with its sister, the European kingdom, which are ruled by Y-DNA haplogroup R carriers, such as Scalians, Yamnaya, and the like, have dominated the four corners of the world. Oh yes, I said it. And let me make this clear. I am not trying to be offensive, okay? I'm not trying to hate on anyone who is haplogroup R. I'm not trying to hate on anyone who is Germanic. I am not trying to hate on anybody. I'm just telling you guys the history. Anyhow, like I said, those who possess the Y DNA haplogroup are. Those are the people who are ruling over America, ruling over Europe, and they have dominated the four corners of the world. One only needs to look at the world Y DNA haplogroup map to observe the prevalency of this haplogroup. In addition to this, if an individual was to look at the most common Y DNA haplogroup amongst the rulers of our world, you would see that most prevalent haplogroups amongst them would be from the Y DNA haplogroup R category. Again, not a coincidence. Here's a source supporting my points. I want to read something to you guys, okay? In the book called Royal Genealogies by James Anderson, who was a master Freemason, he says in the following words on page 2, table 2, Magog, and I quote, Magog, the father of the Getae and Mazagete, on the sides of the north of Great Asia, from whom came the Asiatic Scythians, at or near Mount Caucasus, or as in the Hebrew, Gog Halan. And from these came the European Scythians and the Goths. End quote. You know what? I'm going to read that one more time. Magog, the father of the Getae and Mazagete, on the sides of the north of Great Asia, from whom came the Asiatic Scythians, at or near Mount Caucasus, or as in the Hebrew, Gog Halan. And from these came the European Scythians and the Goths. End quote. See, even this master Freemason tells you that the European Scythians and the Goths are both coming from Asiatic Scythians. That is, the Scythians in Asia. So both the European Scythians and the Goths are coming from the same source, guys. And a simple Google search will show you that the classic Y DNA haplogroup markers that represents the classical Scythians is Y DNA haplogroup R1A. Not G, not I, not J, not E, but haplogroup R1A. And this is important to know because haplogroup R1A is coming from the haplogroup R family. This means, of course, that haplogroup R1A and haplogroup R1B are brothers. So they're coming from the same father. So you are what you are. You are what your father is. Also, the haplogroups that are famously known to represent the Goths are either haplogroup R or I, not G. But in addition to this, haplogroup I was not the haplogroup that conquered Asia during the times of the classical Scythians. This is how you know that it is haplogroup R that is most likely the original haplogroups of the Scythians and not I, because I did not run over Asia. They talk about the Magogites conquering Asia. Haplogroup I did not do that, guys. Haplogroup G did not do that, guys. Haplogroup R did. However, haplogroup R conquered both Asia at that time and is also applied to both Scythians and the Goths, which would make Y-DNA haplogroup R a better fit to represent both the European Scythians and Goths that come from Magog. Think about it. Not only is it said that haplogroup R is commonly associated with both the Scythians and the Goths, but haplogroup R is also known to have been the haplogroup that overtook Asia, which haplogroup I did not do. So haplogroup R fits the actions of the Scythian people. Haplogroup R fits the actions and the migration patterns of the Magogites, guys. In this same book, okay, Royal Genealogies, in this same book, James Anderson, a master Freemason, states on page 442 that, and I quote, Ashkenaz had a brother called Scatha, says the Germans, the father of the Scythians, for which the Germans have been of old called Scythians too, very justly, because they came mostly from old Scythia. End quote. I'm going to read that one more time. And I quote, Ashkenaz had a brother called Scatha, says the Germans, the father of the Scythians, for which the Germans have been of old called Scythians too, very justly, because they came mostly from old Scythia. End quote. Notice here that the author himself is not referring to Ashkenaz as Scatha, although some think that it is very possible that the name Ashkenaz means Scythian. Instead, the author is making it very clear that outside sources are claiming that Ashkenaz had a brother named Scatha, and rightfully so. For Josephus has already said that Magog is the father of the Scythians. Here's a couple of more sources associating Magog with the Scythians. Ellicott's commentary for English readers. And I quote, Magog, the Scythians, who once possessed the country north and south of the Caucasus. The Russians are their modern representatives, being descended from the Sarmatians, a Scythic race with a small admixture of Median blood, end quote. So this scholarly source is telling you that even the Sarmatians descend from Magog. Do y'all know what the haploid group is for the Sarmatians? Look it up. I'm telling y'all, it's going to go right back to haplogroup R. Right back to it. But let me continue the read. Here we go. Barnes notes on the Bible, and I quote, Magog, Caucasian, scathe, end quote. I'm going to read that one more time. Barnes notes on the Bible, and I quote, Magog, Caucasian, scathe, end quote. Let's continue. Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges, and I quote, Magog appears as the name of a country in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 2, and of a northern people in Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 6, generally identified with the Scythians, end quote. I'm going to read that one more time. Cambridge Bible for Schools and Colleges, and I quote, Magog appears as the name of a country in Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 2, and of a northern people in Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 6, generally identified with the Scythians, end quote. So, like I said before, the author of the Targum, the pseudo Jonathan Targum, associates Magog with a place called Germania. When speaking of Magog, even Josephus interprets Magog as the Scythians. Jerome himself, the ancient historian Jerome himself, refers to Magog as the Scythians. Another scholar by the name of Suidas, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, Suidas. If I'm not, just look it up. It's spelled Suidas. Suidas. Even he is saying that Magog is the Persians. And this is very important because Herodotus states that there was a Persian tribe by the name of Germania. You see how all these names connect? Look, in my opinion, all of these authors are correct on this matter. They are speaking about the same people, but under different names. And these people, which are the Magogites that they mentioned under the names Scythian, Germani, and Persian, eventually they migrated from the land of Scythia and conquered Europe. Hence, the prevalence of haplogroup R, known to be the marker of Scythians throughout Europe. Also, interestingly enough, true Scythia begins in modern Germany according to Herodotus. Oh yes. You guys need to read this. You gotta read what the ancient Greeks are saying. Like, you gotta let it in. Modern day media is lying to us. True Scythia begins in modern Germany, according to Herodotus. Furthermore, Herodotus tells us that there was a Persian tribe mentioned by the name of Germania. On top of this, there's even a place in Iran called Kerman or Germania. This resembles German and Germania. On top of Herodotus telling us that there's a Persian tribe named Germani, the Persian tribe Germani. I hope you guys see what I'm saying. Listener, do you see the pattern yet? Do you not see that the names Scythian, Persian, Germani, and Magog are all interconnected like one large family? And don't get it twisted. When one of these scholars referred to Magog as Persian, he's not saying that all the Persians are Magogites. He's not saying that, guys. He's just saying that there was a Magogite tribe living in Persia at the time before they left and migrated to Scythia. And then from Scythia, they go over to Europe. You have to think. You have to think. Once again, from the book Royal Genealogies, this Grand Master Mason, James Anderson, is telling you that the Germans are Scythians too. Do you really think that a white Grand Master Mason would not know if Germans are Scythians or not? Here's another source from a book named The History of the Anglo-Saxons from the earliest period to the Norman conquest. This book was written by Sharon Turner. And on page 3, Sharon says, and I quote, corresponding with this distinction of these languages, the most authentic facts that can be now gleaned from ancient history and the most probable traditions that have been preserved in Europe concur to prove that it has been peopled by 3 great streams of population from the east, which have followed each other at intervals so distinct as to possess languages clearly separable from each other. The earliest of these we shall find to have comprised the Cimmerian and Celtic race. The second consisted of the Scythian, Gothic, and German tribes, from whom most of the modern nations of continental Europe have descended. End quote. I'm going to read that one more time. And I quote, corresponding with this distinction of these languages, the most authentic facts that can be now gleaned from ancient history, and the most probable traditions that have been preserved in Europe concur to prove that it has been peopled by 3 great streams of population from the east, which have followed each other at intervals so distinct as to possess languages clearly separable from each other. The earliest of these we shall find to have comprised the Cimmerian and Celtic race. The second consisted of the Scythian, Gothic, and German tribes, from whom most of the modern nations of continental Europe have descended. End quote. She also speaks of a third wave of people coming into Europe. However, my focus is on her statements when she said the second consisted of Scythian, Gothic, and German tribes, from whom most of the modern nations of continental Europe have descended. Notice here that she said most modern nations of Europe today came from the Scythian, Gothic, and German tribes. Listener, do you know which haplogroup is the most common in Europe? Yup, you guessed it. Y-DNA haplogroup R. Here's another quote from Sharon Turner regarding this topic. And I quote, "The Saxons were a German or Teutonic, that is a Gothic or Scythian tribe. And of the various Scythian nations which have been recorded, the Sakai or Sake are the people from whom the descent of the Saxons may be inferred with the least violation of probability. Sakai, Sune, or the sons of the Sakai, abbreviated into Saxon, which is the same sound as Saxon, seems a reasonable etymology of the word Saxon. The Sakai, who in Latin are called Sake, were an important branch of the Scythian nation. They were so celebrated that the Persians called all the Scythians by the name of Sake, and Pliny, who mentions this, speaks of them as among the most distinguished people of Scythia. Strabo places them eastward of the Caspian and states them to have made many incursions on the Cimmerians and Churis, both far and near. They seized Bactriana and the most fertile parts of Armenia, which from them derived the name Sakacini. They defeated Cyrus, and they reached the Cappadocis on the Euxine. End quote. As you can see here, Sharon Turner is telling you that the Saxons are eastward of the Caspian Seas. The point is, they are coming from the Caspian and are associated with the Caspian, as is Magog. Y-DNA haplogroup I was not coming from this direction, for Y-DNA haplogroup I developed in Europe. Y-DNA haplogroup R fits the bill. Notice here, Sharon Turner also stated that these Saxons, coming from the eastward direction of the Caspian, also made incursions upon the Cimmerians. This is another proof that we are dealing with Y-DNA haplogroup R, for the Scythians in these regions were prevalent in this haploid group. Anyhow, y'all, I just want to let you guys know that that information that I quoted can be found in the book called The History of the Anglo-Saxons, from the earliest period to the Norman Conquest, Volume 1, page 87. Just letting you guys know. Anyhow, remember, the Celtic Britons were in Europe before the Y-DNA haplogroup R Scythians came into Europe. There was a very studious and dedicated Welsh monk named Ninnius, who made it his duty to record the ancient histories of the Europeans. And Ninnius, famously known for his endeavors on this subject matter, wrote that the Bretons come from Javan. Interestingly enough, it's been said that the earliest haplogroups of Europe are Y DNA haplogroups C, F, K, and I. And it just so happens that Y DNA haplogroup K has been thought to be associated with the Greeks or with sons of Javan by some, and that the Y DNA haplogroup K seems to have had an ancient presence in Britain. That might explain the Dodanum, Brutus, who was said to have fought off giants on that land. I hope y'all are following what I'm saying. Anyhow, I want to read to you guys another quote. It's by a famous British historian named William Camden. He wrote this in 1610, I think. And I quote, that the Germans are called Scavians. We gather not only out of Strabo, but also out of Pliny. The name of the Scavians, quoth he, extendeth even to the Germans. The Saxons descended from the Sacer, a most noble nation, and of much worth in Asia. They came in companies, together with the Getae, Suevi, Daci, and others into Europe. End quote. Therefore, contrary to popular opinion, Gomer does not represent the true Germans. Neither does Gomer's son, Ashkenaz, represent the true Germans. Think about it. For those who like to say that Ashkenazi Jews are from Ashkenaz, are you then saying that the Ashkenazi Jews are German? After all, do not many of you claim that Ashkenaz represents the Germans? Look, how could the Ashkenazi Jews be German if the Nazi German soldiers themselves oppressed the Ashkenazi Jews because they were not Germans? That is, the Ashkenazi Jews are not Germanic like the Nazis, guys. How could Gomer's son Torgarma represent the Germanic people when Torgarma is the father of the Turks and not the Germanic people? And for your information, Turks and Scythians are not one and the same. For the Turks were originally Mongoloid and the Scythians originally Caucasoid. Each of them have distinct original Y DNA markers. Listener, the name Ashkenaz doesn't even mean German. A matter of fact, the name Ashkenaz only became associated with Germany by the 10th century. In other words, originally, Ashkenaz did not mean German at all. And like other peoples, the offspring of Ashkenaz migrated to modern-day Germany. And remember, just because one migrates to a particular place does not mean that he or she is indigenous or the rightful owner of that particular region. For instance, did not the Cushites migrate to Elam, which is modern-day Persia? Are we then to say that the Cushites are the true Elamites or Persians? Certainly not. The same can be said for the offspring of Ashkenaz that migrated to modern-day Germany. Well, that's enough for this video. I know that was a lot. There is so much more that can be said, but I'm going to stop here. I hope I made myself clear, and I hope you learned a thing or two. This is it for now. I'm out, y'all. Shalom.